Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and I had some more news regarding the safety towards NSFW content creators once again, because now one of the big ones, Patreon, is now deciding that, you know what, if you sell content that is not safe for work, you'll be shown the door as well. Now, at this point, I got this information from a person called Ule Tiger, and apparently, from what I understand, is that Patreon can, and they probably will, go through your Twitter profile. They can check what you do there as well. In fact, I suppose maybe the thing I should do is to actually look it up myself, because, and I quote directly from Miss Tiger herself. If your income relies on Patreon, please devote one night to culling any content you have on there that might even slightly fall under their blacklist. It's heartbreaking seeing NSFW creators become broke one after the other. They can and will give you the flick. They also check your Twitter or any other site you have linked to from your Patreon for content you post that violates their blacklist. I've seen emails where they directly state this. They have no right to pick through your content like this, but they do. I wish there was another way, guys. I really wish we had all the freedom to consensually buy and sell content meant for adults. Things are only getting worse. So, yeah, I might even do the right thing and actually contact Miss Tiger herself, because, once again, I'm just going to state this for the record, is that I might not personally have a stake or an interest in this sort of material myself, but quite a lot of people do. Quite a lot of people make it their livelihood. Quite a lot of people have made a fantastic success out of doing this sort of thing. Other people have had very turbulent up and downs through this sort of experience, whether through inexperience, faulty equipment, bad luck, and otherwise events that just get in the way, from emergencies to long-term unemployment. There's a lot of things that actually all play a role into this, and now it appears to be that anybody who uses PayPal, for example, as a means of payment, they seem to be the ones who are ultimately deciding what's going to be happening. So, is this Patreon's fault? Well, yes, if they're going through your Twitter DMs, that should be a blatant violation, and there's certainly going to be a lot of very interesting discussions about this. Then, of course, is it in the hands of the payment distributors like PayPal or Swipe or Visa, MasterCard? Are they the ones who are at blame at this as well? Because what sense is it actually going to make when these sorts of businesses are driving a lot of people completely out of it? I mean, I could argue the minutiae and about the fact that just because you're trying to make life harder for them, it doesn't mean they're actually going anywhere. Well, except for the people who have been pulled from pillar to post, and ultimately there's just straight up nothing they can do. So, where do you expect all these people to turn to, ladies and gentlemen? What about all the hard work that they've done? What about the fact that they've identified exactly who their content is for, the hard work they put into it, and just in the hands of some very small people who deciding, no, we don't want that anymore, and immediately kicks them to the curb. What is the ultimate objective to all this? It's driving out small businesses and creating a sense of social alienation, and the only people who are not being impacted, ironically, are the really big studios, your Adult Times, your Brazzers, your Spizzos, or some of the absolute biggest distributors of pornographic material in the US and probably throughout the world. They seem to be completely unfazed by this. So, you got to ask yourself, is it an attack against small-term creators, or is it just attack against you specifically? Because I remember that I even, just to show my support, I even signed a sort of not so much a proposal, but more about a thing about whether or not you were willing to go out of your way to support people whose works were being impacted owing to Visa, MasterCard deciding to kick you off a website and stuff like that. For just, and again, we've been through this with like Gumroad and Dropbox and now Patreon. Very soon, all of them will be kicking a lot of people out, and to be honest, ladies and gentlemen, listen, I started running my small business a number of months ago, and one of the things I do very, very frequently is I check the news, I look through things that businesses do, try to work out what the best sort of practices could possibly be, and then basically go from and it works itself from there. And from what I've observed over these last couple of weeks is the fact that there are also some people who have absolutely no respect for just certain persons who aren't doing anything wrong. They know exactly what their material is for. They outright state that their content is specifically designed for adults. They've gone through all the proper channels. They've laid out all the disclaimers. They've done everything by the book. And these people are responsible. They don't just to say, we'll just let one slip under the radar. No, you can get in very serious trouble for stuff like this. And now PayPal, Patreon, they're just kicking these people out to the curb, and it's disgusting. And this whole business, to be honest, is of petty inconvenience and complete indignity, of constantly being waiting about and wondering whether or not you're going to go through another week before you'll be kicked off just because somebody decided that, no, we don't like your material anymore, despite the fact that you've laid out the claims and you've done everything you could in your power to establish just what it's all about. This is the sort of thing that is inherent in working class life, as I've said before. And 1,000 influences constantly press working people down into a passive role. Those sort of people don't act, they are acted upon. They feel themselves become the slave of some mysterious authority, and they all have a firm conviction that they will never be allowed to do this, that, and the other. I mean, I remember once, 6 years ago, and I was in a professional creative class at university, and the object of these classes is to invite people to talk about what it's like to work professionally in studios, and they're also designed to give you legal advice when studios try and will take advantage of you from, let's say, making you work on days where you should be entitled to have time off that's outside of your contracts, and if they do something like not feature your name in the credits. And I remember they were talking famously about a studio in Australia that was working on the video game LA Noire, and I straight up asked at one point, well, why don't these people in the studios, they ever form a union? And I was told immediately that they would never allow it. But who are they? I know you're probably asking. Well, nobody seemed to know. But evidently, they were omnipotent. Besides, even somebody of quite a humble background, with a relatively good education, you go through life sometimes with some expectation of getting exactly what you want, with if you're within reasonable limits. If you're prepared to play by the rules and you know exactly what you're doing, then it seems reasonable enough. But hence the fact that in times of stress, educated people do tend to come to the front. They are no more gifted than the others, and their supposed education is generally quite useless in itself when it comes to things that they're simply not prepared for. But the fact that they will come to the front is always taken as a course of action, always and everywhere. Remember, as I keep quoting before, in Lisa Gahai's History of the Commune, there is a fairly interesting passage that describes the shootings that took place after the commune had been suppressed. The authorities were shooting the ringleaders, and as they did not know who the ringleaders were, they were picking them out on the principle that those of better class would be the ringleaders. An officer would walk down a line of prisoners, picking out likely-looking types. One man was shot because he was wearing a watch, another because he had an intelligent face. Personally, I should not like to be shot for having an intelligent face, but I do agree that in almost any revolt, the ringleaders would tend to be people who could, in theory, pronounce their H's. I don't have any evidence to suggest how many people who are impacted by this can pronounce their H's. Not that I particularly think that's of any great concern either. For example, there's at least one person I've heard of who's had a long history of medical problems resulting from spina bifida, and also regarding things like throat infections or food poisoning, and you gotta wonder as well, is that all sometimes these people just want to do is just make the content they want to create, appeal to the audience they know they're appealing to, and they play by the rules and they expect to get paid for the things that they do. Labourers deserve their wages, ladies and gentlemen, and all that, again, sites like Patreon or Gumroad can do in return for them is to say, because of PayPal, because of Visa, because of MasterCard, because of American Express, we're deciding, except no, we don't want your stuff anymore, now get off the website. Once and for all, it would seem. Well, again, that's the sort of thing that just doesn't stick with me anymore, and someone's got to drive them out once and for all as well. 1 second.